Hello and welcome to a Marvel Legends figure review that I didn't think would be happening because I forgot I pre-ordered this figure. So much so that when the money came out of my account I had to flick through order history and then panic and redirect the parcel to my new address because it was headed to my old one. But I did get it done, I did manage to receive the figure, and so here's this review. Now obviously I can't quite fit the box on my display. I'm kind of geared for just the figures, I don't tend to review boxes. But it's just your standard retro card with a read up on the back and the 85 years sticker on the front. I do have the minor QC issue of a black speck where I suppose the white paint didn't work properly. Not too big of a deal for me, I'll probably just repaint that by hand. Now this alternate head here, I absolutely love the heads that came with this figure. It's not very often that I like all of the heads that come with the figure. There's normally one that I kind of dislike, but I think they're both great. You can see the really glossy white in the eyes as well. I suppose the teeth could have been done slightly different, but I'm happy with it. And you can see just by the hands here how big this figure is. But alternate fists, nice to be getting equal pairs of hands as well. So and here's the figure himself. Absolutely huge. I, for whatever reason, didn't expect it to be this big. I suppose it's because it's just on the retro card. I thought it would be closer to a standard size. But you can see that little black speck there again. But yeah, much bigger than I was expecting him to be. This is the first like proper comic Venom I've owned. I'll be selling my King in Black Venom to replace it with this one. And you can see there that head sculpt with the tongue. I absolutely love the way it's been done. I love the weird kind of swirliness. I don't know, the texture on the tongue's great. The way it's kind of flicked up behind his head and not just hanging down. I love it. I know a lot of people said they don't like the length of the tongue, they don't like the fact that it's in an action pose. It's an action figure, I'm quite happy with it as it is. Now moving on to the articulation, you can see you've got your standard Marvel Legends ankle joint here. The disc hinge with the pivot at the front. Now, there is no toe articulation, which I think considering they've redone the whole body mold for this, would have been quite a nice addition to have a superposable Venom mold. And then no boot cut either, so the legs are entire reuse, I believe. That being said, you do get some great articulation out of what is there. It's just that there isn't much in terms of points of articulation. Where the articulation is, there's a good range, as you can see. It's just there could have been more points of it, like the boot cut and like the toe hinge. Then you've got your thigh swivel there as well. Surprisingly no drop down hips, which I kind of figured they would be doing because they've redone the entire torso. But regardless, you can get the legs up quite high. It just maybe would have benefited this figure to have a little bit more range considering they've redone the torso already. The ab crunch for me was quite stiff, so I am struggling to get it to the full depth that it can go. And then without the diaphragm joint, this is the range you're getting. So it does crunch forwards quite far. And using that diaphragm joint as well, you can see he's got a good bit of depth in that crunch. And then going back as well, that's without the diaphragm cut. And then that's with the diaphragm cut. So not too much back, but a fair range. But if we're talking about his back, well, he's not just got a cake, he's got the whole bakery. So they've given him a good sculpt, that's for sure. And he's got the chest to go with it. A good range up there, a good size to it, and overall a good sculpt. And you can see if you twist him all the way around, the prints do line up. I don't know what use that would be, but you could do it. And then his hands, both sets of hands have the same articulation. You've got just the horizontal hinge in there. Good elbow range. Considering how big the biceps and the forearms are on this guy, he has got a really good range there. Obviously a 360 bicep rotation as well. And then this shoulder hinge goes up very far, so you're not going to have to worry about kind of rotating the arm around to get him lifting his arm high. The hinge does it as it is. And you'll be glad to know these butterfly joints don't suffer from the same issue that like Spider-Man figures did. They fixed it, he can get the full range of them. I don't push it as far as I could here, but it did go further off camera. You can get that butterfly joint all the way back and all the way forwards. You've got the complete range in there, which is so nice to see. So although I did complain about the legs and the lack of articulation in them, the torso does kind of make up for it. Except for the head. The fact that he can't look up, a character that's always like crouching and kind of looking menacing can't look up. They dropped the ball on that. The neck should have had a hell of a lot more articulation than just being able to look forwards and down. So I guess I'll fix it myself in what was meant to just be a review. So now I've popped the head off, and just taking a scalpel, I'm going to cut a little bit of excess out. Also a ton of heat. You could see there how little movement you actually get out of that joint. And this took a lot of heat, like I'm talking heat gun, and I had to hold it there until the plastic practically melted. And then while it was still melty, I used the scalpel to carve it out. I recommend using a rotary tool if you're going to do this. The scalpel and heat method was a pain. I just don't know where my rotary tool is at the moment because I'm in the middle of moving house. But yeah, because this isn't the normal rubbery plastic that the necks are made of, much harder to cut down. However, now that I've made that dig in the back and taken a load of material out from around the neck, much better side to side. And it's not a ton better looking up, but he can definitely look up further than he could originally. Like, you can see the extra range there. He's looking up now rather than just forwards. So yeah, don't quite understand why I didn't put that little notch in the back like they did for the Spider-Man figures. But onto the poses he can get into. And now, for a big figure, he gets into some very agile poses. You can see here, just messing about with some of the poses you can get that are more aerial based. More kind of monstrous, but still Spider-Man-esque. I'm not particularly well versed in posing Venom figures. I don't tend to own very many of them, and if I do, they're normally just crouched. So, bit of a learning curve trying to get him into some Venom-like poses. Now, a weird issue I had after making this modification to the neck is that it seemed to have made a second socket, so it kind of pops up. It won't just fall out, but it has the standard like placement that it has originally, plus the second one from where I've heated it, and both of those feel like individual sockets now, like you can't just pop it out easily. And you can see the extra range you get with that second pop. If you're just doing photography, it works to keep the correct angle of the head. But with lighting, you can see how well the black picks up the colours as well. This is just me messing around with some colour settings on my ring light, and obviously it ended up being the thumbnail. So overall, fantastic figure. Obviously needs that neck mod, which is a shame because if you're paying for a figure you don't really want to have to modify it. But then that's kind of what my channel is, modifying the figures because they need it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this figure. I personally love it, it's going straight on my shelf. And who knows, maybe I'll get around to doing some stop motion with it. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the Ben 10 custom video.